program. I know most of y'all had been learning about propagation inside. This will be your favorite part of the day, I can promise you. No, just kidding. I know there's a lot of fun stuff going on today. We're out in the vineyard, so welcome. We had our pruning class here. They're still here. They just got the 411 on spur pruning grapevines, so if you missed that, sorry. But we have a lot of master gardeners here who are well trained in pruning. If you do want to learn a little bit, don't be afraid to ask us after this second half of the viticulture program. So can everyone hear me okay? I do have a sound system if you need. Don't be afraid to push and shove to get close to me. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully you can hear me. Y'all can hear me okay? Okay. So we just talked about grape pruning. For any of y'all that do have a grapevine, now is pretty much the time to start pruning. We need to prune grapes every single year. So if you have never pruned your grapevine because you're too scared to do it, come to one of our classes or learn today after this, and I'll give you the quick 4-step process for pruning grapes. But now we're going to focus our attention on propagation. Okay, and there's a lot to talk about, but I'm going to give you, and there are a lot of ways to do it, but what I'm going to teach you is how to do it with the highest chance of success. And if you're going to take more than just a couple cuttings, maybe you're going to take 200 cuttings because you want to sell some of these at a Master Gardener plant sale, or you've got a lot of friends who like drinking wine and you want to disperse grapes for wine so you can all harvest and make wine together. Dallas County Master Gardeners, I'm proud to work with for a number of reasons. This vineyard here is an Earthkind research vineyard. It's a very special vineyard because we are evaluating, or we have evaluated, what varieties may do well in your backyard that require very little care. If you ever go to a box store and you buy a grapevine, whatever it is, typically it's going to be very high maintenance because it's not adapted to Dallas, Fort Worth, typically. And so if you're interested today, I'll ask that you be very cautious and careful, not only for the ant piles, okay, but also we are in the process of pruning these grapes, and it can be very tempting to just want to cut wherever you want if you want to collect propagation material. So I will ask you, and I'll demonstrate how we'll do this, but to just be mindful that this is a production vineyard. The Master Gardener team does utilize these vines for training, but also they've won first place at the Texas State Fair many times for the jelly they make. We also offer a multi-day wine course, and so some of y'all have been in that. You're welcome to attend. It's usually in the fall. We will literally take the fruit from this Earthkind vineyard that receives no pesticides, very little care, but does well. We harvest that fruit and we make wine out of it. And you'll get to go through the whole process and actually take your wine home with you. Some of our attendees have already drank that wine a long time ago. A couple of them, though, have it aging, so it's a fun class. So we do a lot here, and I want to give all the credit to our Master Gardeners who run the vineyard team. So anyways, but now is a good time. It might be a little too late for a propagation of some varieties. I'll explain why. But if you want to make your own grapevines, now's the time to do it, okay? And you can take as many cuttings as you want today and give it a shot. But I'll try to take everything about propagation and put it into little bite-sized pieces because there's a lot to talk about, but I want it to be very practical. This is also informal. So if you have a question, just shout it out, okay? I want to show you this vine, okay?
Does any of this apply to roses?
Not as much. There are some similar principles as far as propagation, but it'll be a little different, and I'll explain why. Okay, this vine right here is a grapevine. You can see the names; they're all named, right? So if you want to collect wood from Lamonto, you'll know where to get it, or whatever variety. But this vine we just pruned, it looked like its neighbor right there. It was a mess. And we gave it a really good cut, and this scared everybody. We had people crying. No, just kidding. The group we had with pruning was great, but now is a great time to take propagation wood because we're getting rid of about 80% of what we call canes, 1-year-old wood. See all this wood coming off? You see the vine is shaped to a T. See that? It's got a trunk that's real barky, and it's got an arm that goes out to the left and to the right. We call those cordons, just a fancy French term for arm. And from that arm comes all this pencil to Sharpie sized tan wood. Okay, that is the best wood for propagation. It is juvenile wood, it's fruitful wood, it's young wood, right? I could make some jokes about old wood and new wood, but you can imagine a nice, healthy, young, vigorous piece of wood is going to root better than a piece of trunk that's been through hell and back, right? It's been through Texas weather for many years. It's tired, it's petered out, right? It's been through it all. So when we take wood for propagation, we want to take this 1-year-old wood, this fresh pencil to Sharpie size wood, and that's going to give us the greatest chance of success. Okay? There are a number of ways to propagate fruit trees and vegetables. Y'all been learning with Glenn about many of those. What are some of those? We can break it down into sexual propagation and asexual or clonal propagation. What is sexual, right? Seeds. You can take those berries, take those seeds, you can grow them out. You can get a new grapevine. Do you know every single seed of a grapevine is a new undiscovered variety, right? That's how they get new varieties of grapes when they breed them. They take seeds, they plant out thousands of them, they see what survives, they like one, they name it, you sell it. Every single seed is, in grapes at least, is genetically at least slightly different. Okay, even if it was self-pollinated, it's a new variety. And so you could take a seed and grow out a grapevine. What do y'all think the problem is with taking seed for fruit crop, perennial fruit crops? What are some of the downsides?
You won't know what it's going to taste like.
You don't know what it is, right? You don't know what it's going to taste like. You don't know if it's going to be tough like the mother vine or it's a new variety. So most of the time, seedlings are not true to type, and most of the time they're going to be inferior in quality to the mother. Okay, that's number one. Number two, has anyone tried? Takes too long. That's number two. Y'all know about avocados? Anyone tried to take an avocado pit and grow it out? Avocados have one of the longest periods before fruiting, up to 10 years. You'll see green growth. You will never see an avocado until 10 years. I don't know about you, I'm not waiting that long. Grapes, though, you'll get fruit either in the first year or second year. We have to implement tough love. We talked about it with the pruning class. If you take your material today and you have success making roots, okay, you plant it out. April is the prime planting window, so we're getting close to it. You may have to keep your little vine in a pot for this year and then plant it out next spring, but you may be good enough, may get root quick enough to where you can actually put it in the ground in late April. You can do that. But if you see fruit, you got to be tough loving it and cut that fruit off, because we want that mother vine not to spend all her energy on her children, which she will do. We want her to spend it on herself, take a year-long spa day to build up a healthy, strong vine so that in subsequent years or future years, she can handle a huge crop of lots of beautiful children, okay? So that's one thing, just a forewarning. If you do have success and you plant your new little grapevine in the ground, take off all the growth, let it grow. You can start training a nice trunk on your arbor, pergola, or grapevine trellis. And there's fact sheets online and videos on how to do that on Aggie Horticulture Facebook page. If you aren't familiar with that website, we have tons of free short videos, except mine. Mine are like 30 minutes long, but most are short. And if you have never been on YouTube or Facebook, Aggie Horticulture, tons of stuff. I also talk about pruning arbors and trellises with grapevines on them, because it's a little different than pruning on an actual trellis. I also have a video on propagation. So if you've forgotten everything I said today, you can go on Aggie Horticulture, YouTube or Facebook, and you can search in the history, and you'll see me in a black shirt talking about propagation. And that's going to be a good refresher for you, okay? So, lots to talk about, but the first thing is that this is a great time to take material, because we're getting rid of most of our canes, our 1-year-old wood, our ideal propagation wood. Okay, so we can propagate grapes sexually, but most of the time we go the asexual route. We're taking clonal propagules. What does that mean? We're taking wood from the mother vine, we're going to root it out. The buds on that mother vine has the same genetics as this vine, right? So you know what you're getting. You're getting a Lamanto or a Blanc du Bois or a Southern Sensation. Well, we can't do Southern Sensation. I'll talk about that later. It's patented. Everything else is not patented. You can take as much as you want. But the point is whether you have a rootstock or not, you can take hardwood cuttings, root them out. That it happens very quickly, and it's true to type. And you're going to get fruit very soon as well. So this is the best time to take propagation wood for grapevines. There's two main ways to asexually propagate grapes. One is called taking dormant budwood, which is what we're doing right now. These grapes are just starting to wake up, which is not good for multiple reasons, mainly spring frost, but also some of these varieties, and each variety wakes up a little bit different. They all wake up in spring. The muscadines, which are true native grapes to East Texas, we have improved varieties, but they're the smartest. They won't wake up till end of March through April. Okay, they're also the hardest to propagate from hardwood cuttings or hard budwood, dormant budwood. Okay, but if you see a grapevine that's starting to break bud, it's starting to wake up. I just pruned that one, but see that one that Galen is standing next to in the maroon? See, it's got green little buds popping out? That is not good wood to take for propagation, okay? Because if I have, let me show you. Now, I'm not going to take a full-size cutting, but I'm just going to demonstrate. Dormant cutting, we need it to be dormant, asleep, no activity, because if I were to take this and try to root it out, the problem is now I have active green growth. And that growth needs what? Sunlight and water. Well, where is it going to get water from with no roots? It's not. And it takes about 4 or 5, 6 weeks to get roots. They're going to come from that cut, okay? And I could literally take this, if I had roots, put it in the ground and make a whole new grapevine. And I only need one bud or one shoot to do that, okay? But if you see bud break, don't waste your time. It's not going to work. This will die out before you get roots, and then you'll have no buds to make new growth. So you're stuck. But for example, this one here, this is a muscadine. Notice how it's green, it's alive. You can always tell if a grape's alive by cutting into it. If it's green, it's living. That's good. You're not going to make new vines from dead wood, right? But notice the buds every few inches. They have not woken up. They're not even what we call swelling. They don't look like fuzzy Q-tips. So we can take this wood and we'll have a really good chance of success for propagating it, making roots. Once we get roots, then we can put it in a pot or in the ground and make a whole new grapevine, okay?
I got
Now,
a quick question.
yeah, go ahead.
So you took a really short piece. So
Yes.
roots only come from the cut stem. It doesn't. You can't scrape it and.
They
root
can
all the
come
way
from
up?
other places, so I'll explain that.
Okay,
But
sorry.
no, that's fine. Yeah, so the question was, are the roots only going to come from where I cut? And the answer is the majority will. But you might get some coming out from the nodes and things like that. And that's okay. If that part of the root system is not buried in the ground when you plant it or in a pot, it will just die off. But as long as you have the majority of the roots in ground, you'll be fine. I don't have examples with me today, but I do online. So if you watch that video, you'll actually see some of the material that we would take today in 5 weeks, what it will look like and how to deal with that, okay? So anyway, so let's go to this vine. Now I'm going to show you how to take dormant or hardwood cuttings, right? They're not awake. Almost all grape varieties propagate very easily from this method. There's one exception, and those are the muscadines. We do have 2 or 3 muscadine varieties here. So if you grew up in East Texas and you love that real sugary, cotton candy-like, artificial fruitiness flavor of a muscadine, you can take cuttings today, but you're going to have to take a bunch, and you might only get like 10% take, and it's going to take 2 or 3 months to root out. There's another better way to do that, and I'll demonstrate that at the very end. But most grapes, this is the method we'll use, okay? Come up to a grapevine, we're pruning, so even the wood on the ground, if it's 1-year-old wood, okay, wood that came off the arms here, that's pencil to Sharpie size, tan in color, that's perfect, okay? So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna take, from this vine, I could make probably 100 new grapevines. That's pretty cool, okay? But I'm going to take a piece of cane that's about pencil size. I want to get a longer one to demonstrate. Okay, here's one. Okay. When you cut, if you are going to be in this vineyard, we do have supervision, so you can ask a master gardener for help. You're going to have to scoot up. Don't be afraid to push your neighbor gently. So hopefully you can hear me a little better now. Okay. If you are to take your own cuttings today, I ask that you do one thing. Leave at least 2 buds when you make a cut. Do not cut it flush right with the arm. Does everyone understand that? So if I were to do this, now the master gardeners are not going to get any fruit there, because if they get a bud to break on this old wood, it's old wood that's not going to have fruit, and they just lost about 4 to 6 clusters. Okay, so I'll show you how to do it. Okay, if you're going to take something like this piece, leave 1, 2 buds, and you can take this wood, but leave that little spur, right? That's all I ask that you do. Okay, leave at least 2 buds, and you can take this and make a bunch of grapes with it. So I just took a cutting of 1-year-old wood. Do y'all see this? It's about pencil to Sharpie size in diameter. It's tan, and it came off the arm. I didn't cut a piece of barky wood. Notice also it's smooth bark. This is perfect wood for hardwood propagation. Now, ideally, this wood would be nice and straight and not curling, but it really doesn't matter, okay? Because when you train your new grapevine that you have from this event, the part that you're actually going to train will be the green growth, okay? So you can make a nice straight trunk from that. So it's not a big deal if it's kind of curling and whatever. So here we go. I'm looking for a 10 to 12 inch piece. That is going to be 1 cutting, okay? This little piece here is not long enough, and also it is too small. If you try to make, even if this was 10 inches, 12 inches long, if it's less than pencil size, don't waste your time. It does not have enough energy, stored carbohydrates, to make new roots. All right? It's not worth it. You need pencil to Sharpie size. So I can take this piece and I can cut off everything else. This one, actually, I can make another cutting from it. It's about pencil, and it's about 10 to 12 inches. Here is a cutting. Doesn't matter if it's a side shoot or a main shoot. As long as it's 10 to 12 inches and larger than pencil, this is good. So I'll keep this one. Okay. Then I can also keep this one. Okay. Now it's longer than 10 to 12 inches, so I'll just cut it back. Okay. Here's a second vine. Okay. Now I don't know how many I can fit in here, but this will be good enough. Now, this one is not, it's less than pencil, it's really not good, so I'll prune all that. So now I have another piece. Okay, 10 to 12 inches, I'll cut it back. Now here's a tip. If you go hog wild today and you have 100 cuttings, let's say, and you go, I'm going to root these out in this method I'm going to talk about, the polarity or the orientation of this is important. Now, wherever a wound is, the grape will try to make what we call adventitious roots, or roots that would have never come from there otherwise, unless we make a cut and actually root them out. So if I were to cut at a flat angle here and at the bottom, how do I know which way is oriented upwards? What you don't want to have happen is you take this cutting, or you have 100 cuttings and they're all which way. Some are pointing this way and some are pointing this way, upside down. You get roots on both sides, you don't know where's what. It's a lot easier to take this, make a flat cut at the bottom and an angled cut at the top. Now you know which way's pointing upwards. Now there's a cheat. If you don't do that, you can actually look, okay, see this piece of wood? Every bulge is a node. And within every bulge, every few inches, there's a bud. That's your green growth, right? That's where your shoot's gonna come from, how you're gonna train the entire new vine. A leaf used to be at this last year, and it has fallen off. And there is a little crescent-shaped scar. If that leaf scar is underneath the new bud, it's pointed upright. It's correct. If the leaf scar, okay, you can kind of see, it's dark, it's right here. That's where the leaf was attached. And here's the bud. this little tan ball, it's above it. That is pointed correctly, okay? You bundle everything up the right orientation, and that's just gonna make your life a lot easier, okay? So that's a pro tip. This is the perfect piece of wood to propagate from. You'll mainly get roots coming from here, and you may get a few up here, and if there's any injury, you might get a little bit more. But as long as we can bury the main root system in the soil, in the ground when we plant in maybe late April, or if we put it in a pot for 1 year or permanently, we know we'll be fine. If you get a little bit of roots coming off the tops, they'll just dry up and die. It's no big deal, okay? So I'm gonna bundle up a bunch of these, okay? Usually we do maybe a dozen or 2 dozen. We'll rubber band them in a bundle, yes.
Can I see the leaf scar again? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I have poor vision now.
So it's right here.
That scar right there. Okay.
And there's another one. And I can show y'all later too, if you wanna see it. Okay. So we'll have a bundle of these, and I'm gonna walk you through in just a second to the next stage and how we actually process these. Now, some people, especially if you're in South Texas, will literally just stick this in the ground, right where they want their vine to be. And if they don't get cold, it'll take a lot longer, but it'll root typically, and you can train that grapevine just like that. But we're in Dallas. We know we're not out of the woods yet with cold, unfortunately. So to have the most chance of success, we're gonna walk over to my truck underneath the shade right now, and I'm gonna show you a cheap way to propagate with up to 90% success a bunch of cuttings. So let's go to my tailgate. Did someone call my name? No, okay. Okay, gather around. So this is on the video online, but I think some of y'all, maybe Glenn's talked about propagating in this method for other things. You can also root out other things that can be own rooted, not grafted. Vitex is a great example. I've rooted a number of Vitex cuttings, chase tree, with this exact same principle. You can also do this with your fruit trees. The problem is they don't root very well even with this method, and then they're not grafted. So it's like that avocado, right? If someone needs to sit on a tailgate because of their back, feel free to. Anyways, but for grapes, this is the best method. Yes, there are other ways you can do it, but this ensures the greatest chance of success, and you can do a ton or just a few, okay? So you've got your wood. One of the most important things is not to throw your bundle from today in the back of your truck and forget about it for a week, because it will dry out. We have to put this in a dark, humid, warm environment. It's like, think of it like a heart transplant. This is the organ. We got to get it into its place as soon as possible. So if you're going to leave today with a bunch of cuttings, the best thing to do is get you a trash bag. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Good. So y'all have got some opportunity. So listen carefully. Take your cuttings and put them in a baggie with some moist paper towels, because they will even dry out on your car ride home. So we don't want that to happen. That's going to limit the chance of success. Once this dries out, you can make a new fresh cut. That's something to do. But if it's dry and you just put it in there, roots aren't going to come from that. So either transport it properly. That's the best chance of success. If you didn't do that, make a fresh cut. Make sure it's nice, moist, and green. If not, you're in trouble. Okay, so if you can see this, this is what we call a callus box. Okay, in order to get adventitious roots on any of our dormant cuttings, you have to have what is called callus tissue formation. And Glenn may have talked about it, but callus tissue are essentially stem cells that don't know what they want to be. They're healing tissue, and they can, from that tissue, roots can come from it. So we're trying to get callus formation at this wound. And it looks like this white kind of bumpy material. So you'll see that. Don't be afraid. It's not some fungus or some weird thing. That is called callus tissue. And it's trying to heal that wound. And in that process, some of those stem cells start to turn into roots, which is what we want. Okay? So I'm going to bundle these up, make sure they're all oriented in the right way. I'm going to go to the store, or if you need to, if you have them at home, get you a box. It can be a teeny box or a big box, depending on how many cuttings you want to take. It is ideally not going to be clear. So you want it to be opaque, right? This is a Rubbermaid. Just keep it plastic or metal, that's fine. You're going to fill it with this. So these are just shavings. Now, coarser is better. What we want is an environment that is moist and warm and dark to promote this callus formation and those adventitious roots. Okay? What I don't want to see are buds waking up into little green shoots that are looking for sunlight. We want to try to get roots to form before the buds wake up. Okay? In order to do that, you've got your tote. Some people drill holes at the bottom so that excess moisture can go out. You do not want wet. That will rot these up. You want moist. Go to your local hardware store and get either pine or cedar coarse animal shavings. Okay? I like cedar because the cedar oil acts somewhat as a fungicide and helps prevent a lot of that mold. Most of the mold you see is not harmful to the vine. It's just going to tell you that it's too wet and your propagation material is probably going to be rotting. Okay? So I like cedar. If you can't get it, pine is fine. But again, cedar is best. You're going to take this, put it in a little kiddie pool or something, and soak it well. This is, y'all know what the word hydrophobic means? Anyone try to water their potted plants when they're bone dry and the water just pools off like a duck's back? This is the same stuff. So you may be thinking you're getting it wet, but on the inside, most of it is bone dry. So you want to let this soak for a little while. You might just fill this up with water too. Give it a good 30 minutes to soak and then drain it all off. When you have this, okay, this is how you know it's moist but not wet. After you've watered it in, you squeeze it, and if you see you feel moisture but you don't see big beads of water running off, that's the perfect media. Okay? You're going to take your bundle, and some people like to layer them horizontally, then put a couple inches of cedar shavings, moist cedar shavings, then another layer, and do that all the way like a sandwich. Some people like to just stick them in like this vertically. You can do that, but you can typically fit more in this way. Okay? So you're going to stick your cuttings in there. Make sure you label them right. I tell myself every year, oh, it's Lamonto, how can I forget? And then 5 weeks later, I'm like, what the heck was that? And I have no idea, right? So especially if you're going to have a lot of stuff in here today, make sure you know how to label it because you will forget. And it might be 2 or 3 years before you get fruit to where we can actually ID it.
You want the example?
Yeah, here's some more. Oh, yeah, great. Thank you. All right, Alan. Yeah, oh, thank you. You just made the day even better. All right. Okay, so I'll demonstrate that in a second. Now, you're going to keep this in an area that doesn't freeze. So the garage is fine if it's not going to go below 32. Warmer is better. Warmth with moisture and darkness is going to really speed up that callus formation. So ideally, this will take 4, 5, 6 weeks. Okay?
So a greenhouse is fine.
Greenhouse is fine if it doesn't get freezing, but also if it doesn't go above about 90 or 100 internally. So if you're going to roast them, that's not good, right? But right now, it's typically not a problem. Now, if you have maybe just a little tote and you've got 10 cuttings, you can put this on the top of a refrigerator. You know there's a little heat there. But what I like to do is just get, and I know you have them, you can get these on Amazon for super cheap, just the seedling mats. Get you a big seedling mat, crank it all the way up, put it underneath this tote. And you can do this. You can take that propagation, those cuttings, the propagills, as soon as the vine goes fully dormant. So you could actually take this in December, January, February. The sooner actually the better, because it's going to take a while to root. So unfortunately today, with the early spring, remember, if you see bud break on the 10 to 12 inches that you select, it's not going to take. Don't waste your time. But if you can find some dormant wood, you can have success. But even if you do, you're on the tail end of the ideal planting window. So ideally, you would be doing this at the beginning of February, maybe even mid-January to take this. So keep that in mind for next year. But you can put a little seedling mat for warmth, okay? And you'll need to check it every week or so and just stick your hand in there and make sure it's staying moist. If you have holes, I like to keep this closed. If you have holes, it's going to dry out faster. And use a spray bottle, or you might even have to give it some real water, okay? You're going to let this set. Now, you can check maybe in about 4 weeks, give your first check. And you can remove some of those cedar shavings. And Alan here has provided us with some of his cutting material that has actually started to root. And so you're going to see this. So can you see the little roots? So these were cuttings. They're rooting. Okay, can y'all see that? Oops, thank you. All right, y'all see that? See the little roots? All right, now this is very important. Once you start seeing the roots, once they get to about 1 to 2 inches, you need to get them out, because if you let them all start entangling each other and you try to separate them, you're bumping off a lot of roots. And realize this little cutting only has so much sugar or energy stored up. Once that's expended, it's dead. So we don't want to be breaking off roots, because that all took a lot of energy to make. And the more roots we have, the better the chance of success for this cutting. So we don't want to be breaking off roots. Now, I'm an Aggie and I make a mess of everything. So I'll break off a few roots, but you don't want to just leave them in here and go, I'll get to them in another month. They get all tangled up and you're going to lose most of those roots, which you just spent a lot of time waiting for. So once I see these roots, maybe an inch or 2 inches, I will either put them in the ground and start my new grapevine, or if it's too early or it's too late, I'll put them in a 1-gallon pot. And I'll water them and I'll grow them out and bump it up a couple sizes throughout the year, and then plant it in either the fall or ideally next spring. Okay, but you have a free, well, you know how they say about gardening and free, that there's no such thing, but you didn't have to pay for the cutting, but you did have to pay for your time and the equipment and all that. But that's going to be the ideal thing to do, okay? So,
will you be using potting soil, or will you be using...
Great question. If you're going to pot it up, use potting soil. Never use native soil like this black gumbo. It won't do well in it in a pot. But if use just potting soil. Great question. Okay. That's pretty much it for there, I think. Oh, that's a great question. So how deep do you need to plant this? You need to make sure the roots are at least 3 inches below the soil level. So, and you want to have at least 2 nodes. See these 2 big bumps? 1, 2. You need at least 2 nodes under the soil. So I could plant this about like this. If this is in the ground or in a pot, eventually I have 1, 2, 3 buds. Okay, here's another tip. If you have more than 3 buds, cut it off. You only want 2 to 3 buds when you plant, because that little bit of energy that mother vine has in this material needs to go to fewer children. And at this point in time, these green shoots are children because they're taking energy. And I don't want this mother vine to put a little bit of energy into a bunch of different shoots, because they're all going to be weak and scraggly and poor. So do not be afraid when you plant this to spur it, just like we did out there, to 2 or 3 buds. Okay? You're going to get tremendous growth. You're going to take the best one, the best green shoot, and start training out a trunk. You'll keep the other 1 or 2 as insurance, just in case that trunk gets damaged the first year. Okay? So that's the process. Remember, April is the prime time to plant. We're at least 4 weeks away from getting roots, probably more like 5. So we can do it, but you're going to have to act fast if you want to be able to plant this year. Again, we have all these vines. Some of them have been already final pruned. You'll see they don't have really long canes. Remember, 10 to 12 inches. You have to have that. Pencil the Sharpie size. Okay? If you're going to take cuttings today, remember there's 2 rules. Leave me 2 buds on that for the mother vine. And also, do not take Southern Sensation seedless. If you aren't familiar with that grape, it's brand new. It is patented. And my job is worth more than a free cutting. So please don't take that. If you want, you can buy it. Just real quick, this is a new grapevine for the world. It was released with A&M in Arkansas. It is the first ever true seedless table grape that does not die from Pierce's disease. It is low maintenance. The master gardeners here, Sherry and her team, have planted a bunch. So if you want to come back in the summer and see what it looks like, it makes beautiful table grapes. If you want to learn more about the other 8 or 9 varieties we have here, you have the placards, and I'm happy to talk to you about them. If I were to take one grape home for multi-use, jelly juice, wine, and fresh eating, it would be Lamanto or Champanel. Okay, there is a grape here though that you cannot buy at the nursery. It is not patented. It's called Miss Blanc from Mississippi. If you like Moscato wine, that real fruity flavor, you want to make juice, jelly, eat it fresh, or make wine, take cuttings of it. You can't buy it. So that's the only way you can do it. Now, this is, again, the best chance of success for rooting, probably 80-90% plus success. If you do it another way, you may get as much success, but you're probably not going to. So just keep that in mind. This is a great method, but there are other ways to do it. Okay. The last thing I'll say is, while you talked about muscadines do not root well from hardwood or dormant cuttings, and what if I really want Lamanto, but every single cane out there has buds? I can't propagate that. You have another option. You can take what are called green cuttings during the growing season. Once you see green shoots on your grapevines, and they're about 1 foot to 2 foot long, and you have mature leaves, you can cut that green shoot up into little pieces. And you need to have at least 1, but ideally 2 nodes, and you need 1 good leaf. Okay, so that's about 6 inches. You'll leave 1 good leaf, and you can stick them in perlite. Y'all know the white little material? But here's the problem. Since that is living material, what does it need? Water. Where is it going to get it from? Not the roots initially. You can put that in a little greenhouse under a mist system, or if you get a bag, or a little milk carton, you're going to have to spritz it though every day. I don't know if you want to do that, but you can propagate muscadines all day long with that method, and even our other varieties. So if you are dying to get something you can't get today, you can come back and you can take, a bunch of green cuttings, but it's a little more work. The last thing I'll say is, y'all have learned about auxin, right? A lot of y'all, as an important hormone in all plants, but it's also used in propagation to make roots, right? Synthetic auxin. Rooting hormone is what we typically see it labeled as, the little white powder or liquid. Grapes are so easy. If you have to use rooting hormone, I don't know what to tell you, but grapes do not need it. They produce lots of auxin. They root perfectly fine without rooting hormone. If you want to use it, you can. It's not going to hurt, but it's not necessary, okay? So that's the process from start to finish. Any questions?
Can you do it from a leaf cutting?
So the question was, can you propagate from a leaf cutting, not a leaf itself? So you can from green that has a leaf, but you have to have buds. Grapes cannot make buds on leaf. So you cannot, it's not like a succulent where you could take half a leaf and root. No, you can only do dormant 1-year-old wood or green cutting, 6 inches, 2 nodes, 1 leaf, and they'll come from the bud. Great question. Yes?
Can you propagate from a cutting that's even thicker than the Sharpie? Like, I have one that's a dual trunk, and I need to take 1 trunk off.
So the question is, can I propagate? Maybe I've got a monster Texas-sized grapevine, and the 1-year-old wood is like mega Sharpie size, the big ones. You can take it, but the chance of success is much less. It's not going to want to root as heavily and as quickly. So you can, but this is the ideal material, okay? Pencil to Sharpie, yeah. There was one other thing I was going to say based off that. Let me think real quick. Maybe that was it. It may come back to me. Yes, ma'am.
How far below the bottom node do you cut?
Say that again?
How far below the bottom?
Oh, great question. Okay, I didn't talk about this specifically. It's not a big deal, but when I make my bottom cut, I want to actually cut at the node. I don't want to leave. Like here, if I cut this is called internodal length. It's just blank space. You can do that. It'll root. If I cut it right at the node, auxin tends to accumulate here. You're going to get better rooting faster. So you can actually injure that node. You're not going to take that bud and make a new, you're going to get a bud from up here. Okay, so yeah, actually cut right into the node, the very end of the node. That's going to injure it more and make rooting even much more prolific.
Make that cut when you get home and ready.
Yeah, so if you don't have a trash bag and some paper towels or a Ziploc bag, Ziploc is going to be hard because 10 to 12 inches. But if you are going to go home, what I typically will do is not even cut that cane. I'll leave it at its full length, throw it in my truck, go home, and then cut it into 10 to 12 inch pieces. You see what I'm saying?
So it doesn't dry out.
Yeah, right. Yes. Okay, any other questions? Now let me, if you want, I'm just really quickly demonstrate grafting. These grapevines are own rooted, which means the root system is identical to the top because they have American genetics. So we have a commercial grower here, the Hamiltons, with Skinner Bridge in Canton. They have both hybrid grapes and they have European wine grapes. Those European wine grapes had never seen Texas before till they planted them. So they are going, what the heck is going on here? The soil's different, the weather's different. So they actually are grafted onto a rootstock, an American rootstock. But the top is Cabernet Sauvignon or Syrah or Chardonnay, okay? Most of your fruit trees are grafted. You go to Lowe's Home Depot and you see that weird bulge at the base of your citrus or your peach trees or your plum. Those are all grafted. So grapes, these varieties, you do not have to graft because of the genetics. The root system is well adapted to our soil, generally. If you're going to grow something that is not adapted, you will want to graft. Now, this is advanced. You can do it, but you're going to have a rootstock cutting as well. Where are you going to get that from? Well, you can let a sucker come out from a grapevine that has a rootstock, but I'll just demonstrate it just so you can see what the process. You can callus it just like you would your own rooted cuttings, but there's an extra process. So I'm going to pretend that this is 12 inches long. I'm going to go to the variety I'm interested in. Let's say we want to grow Cabernet Sauvignon. And I'm going to take, let's say this is Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm just going to take a bud, right? Just one node. Let's pretend this is my rootstock I was somehow able to find. I take a 10 to 12 inch cutting, okay? I'm going to make a cut, get rid of that node so we have internodal space. You can do this with a handheld grafting knife, or you can use a really nice one. This is a cleft grafter. It makes a V cut. I can go ahead and I'm going to marry the two together. So I've made a V, a female cut here. Doesn't matter which one as long as they're not the same, because then they won't fit together. And then I'll make a male cut on the other one. Okay, this is pretty cool. Okay.
How much does that cost?
You can get it on Amazon for like 40 bucks. Look for Omega grafter. Okay, Omega is the key shape. This one's a cleft grafter, but I have a female and male part. I'll fuse them together. Okay. I can wrap it up in some buddy tape and I can root it out. Now, it's, sorry, I said buddy tape, which most people don't know what that is. It's like parafilm wax or cling wrap. You want to make sure this does not dry out. This is a wound, and just think it's now 2 different grapevines on the same one. And so all those water pipes and sugar pipes have to fuse. So we need what kind of tissue? Callus tissue. You'll see this weird white growth both at the graft union and at the wound. The cool thing is you'll get roots down here and this will fuse, and now the two have become one. And you'll never know the difference. So, yeah, so if you want to come up, you see that? You just set it in, okay? So you do want to put a little buddy tape or parafilm or cling wrap and a little rubber band to keep it on there. And you'll make that bottom cut, but you'll also put it in here in your callus chamber. And you'll get roots and the graft union will fuse. Now you'll have roots that are an American variety, and your Cabernet Sauvignon is what you'll see coming up above the ground with the fruit. So